Why do we compare these two teams? Because they are grandes, big clubs in name, but really their recent history suggests otherwise. Now here's a look at their league titles all time. Chivas with 12, Cruz Azul with 8, 20 between the two of them. That's the history. But the recent history is troublesome. The last league title for Cruz Azul, 1997. The last for Chivas, 2017, though it had been a decade before that when they won the previous title. Last season, both teams finished out of the playoffs. And you look at that final category, tabla de cocientes. That's how you used to arrive at who would get relegated in Mexican soccer. If there was still real relegation in Mexican soccer, Chivas would be relegation threatened. So Herc, we have two glorious brands who have played inglorious football for quite some time now. Chivas hasn't made the playoffs, La Liguilla, in the last 5 seasons. Who of these two iconic teams is in worse shape today?
Are you seriously asking me this?
Yeah.
Are you seriously going to go down this route? I mean, it's got to be a no-brainer. Chivas is not worse than Cruz Azul. Do you know the dumpster fire that is Cruz Azul?
If there was relegation, they'd be playing in Ascenso.
Final. But there is relegation, and you know what? They're not playing in Ascenso. Do you want to know why? Veracruz. Do you want to know why?
Oh, because a team that got disaffiliated. Because a team that no longer exists is the only thing keeping Chivas out of Ascenso. Yeah, you're right. They're in great shape.
They're fifth. They're fifth. They're not second. They're not first in El Consciente. They're fifth. Now, there's a reason El Consciente was created, to protect the big teams, and it's doing its job. Chivas is still there. But who is worse? Are you serious? We know who's pulling the strings at Chivas. We know there's money behind there. We know they're trying to right the ship. What's going on at Cruz Azul?
There's not money at Cruz Azul.
Is it Carlos Usado, an agent out of Miami? Is it Garces, who's now the acting president, or is the vice president but acting member there? Is it
they
Billy
were in
Alvarez?
a final 12 months ago. Chivas hasn't made the playoffs in 5 seasons, Herc. Cruz Azul was in a final within a year.
It doesn't matter how you try to spin it. Look at Chivas' 2010s. Easily better than Cruz Azul. Look at Cruz Azul's overwhelming history. You're not going to find one person who's going to say Chivas is off worse. It doesn't matter if they're a relegation battle fighters every year possible. Cruz Azul is hopeless. Cruz Azul is in a pit of despair. And the reason is who runs it. That's the problem.
Interesting that you say who runs it, because these two clubs have something else in common. The guy making the football decisions right now at Chivas is the guy that used to make the football decisions at Cruz Azul. That is one Ricardo Peláez. Is it a problem for Cruz Azul to have let him go and now to see him working with Chivas and building what many people are calling a super team?
I wouldn't go as far as calling it a super team, but he's doing wonders with an open wallet. And I will say open wallets with the caveat of it's $50 million that they're spending. I don't know the last time Chivas has spent that much. I think the last time they've even gotten remotely close to investing that much was when they brought in Aldo de Nigris, Fernando Arce, Rafa Marquez Lugo, when they had these players that were maybe at their prime or just past their prime, but never showed this much promise. Cruz Azul, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, what is Cruz Azul? Do you remember how he was let go? Do you remember where he renounced his title as sporting director? It was on this network, ESPN. It was on Fútbol Picante on live television, because the vice president Garces was on there saying, no, he's not calling the shots. No, this is what's happening. He resigned on air. It shows you the problems that are at Cruz Azul. So if they're missing him, I don't really know if they're missing him, because when he was there, he wasn't really pulling the strings, so to say. He was maybe selecting players, but deciding what happens in future contracts and deciding who the future coach is, we saw that wasn't the case. So I don't know. I think Ricardo Peláez is better off not being at Cruz Azul, but I don't know if that really matters to Cruz Azul.
Right. Well, we saw the Chivas additions. Let's take a look now at the Cruz Azul additions. They were not so wildly active in the winter market, but did make some key pickups. Sebastian Jurado, you mentioned Veracruz. He comes up. Young Mexican goalie Luis Romo just got his first national team cap with Mexico. A couple other players there coming up from Querétaro, Aqueloba. Pablo Cepelini joins from Atlético Nacional in Colombia. Has Cruz Azul done enough to get into the playoffs, Herc? They were 12th a year ago.
No, not at all. And also, Akeloba is not signed yet. He's a heavily transferred rumor transfer for Cruz Azul, but he doesn't have a team yet. He's not signed. He's working out by himself. You can check his social media. Cruz Azul is in despair. Caraglio, they're I guess best number 9, you would say, who's not exactly a consistent goal scorer, but has had a few good seasons with Cruz Azul. He's out for a considerable amount of time, so they don't have that backup 9. They don't have that 9. They brought in Brian Angulo, and I don't know if he's your 9. He's a complement to the 9, but he's not your 9. He's another player like Cabecita Rodriguez, who can be a very good complement up top, and he's got a lot of speed, and he's got depth within his game, but he's not the goal scorer. So where are the goals going to come from? And Luis Romo being there, he does help out somebody with Rafa Baca in that midfield position, because let's be honest, since they lost Ivan Marconi, they've never had that stability in the center of the field, that bite, that player that gives them balance. Maybe Luis Romo playing that dupla, that counter to Rafa Baca can be that player, but this is still a team with a lot of holes.
Herc, let me ask you this. Who do you think has a better season between the two? Based on what you've said so far, I think I have a clue.
Take a guess.
Chivas.
No, you'd be wrong, and the simple answer is Cruz Azul, because they could still hire, or they could still look for transfers. I thought Cruz Azul
was in worse shape.
Let me tell you what the difference is, the foreign player. This is the disadvantage that Chivas have. Where are they going to find players? Where are they going to look in the open market? That's the only market they can go to right now that's outside of Liga MX. They can't really find these players. What are you going to sign? Carlos Vela, Chicharito Hernandez? You're going to sign Hector Moreno? Realistically, they're not going to sign these players. So who has more of opportunity to really get reinforcements, get these refuerzos? It's Cruz Azul. So by that, you'd have to say that with the inclusion of the foreign player, who's quite honestly the better player in Liga MX, they've got a better opportunity.
Let's compare then the managers. This could be another tiebreaker between the two sides. Of course, Luis Fernando Tena now in charge of Chivas. He was the man in charge when Cruz Azul won their last title in 1997. Tena has two Liga MX titles to his credit. Robertante Siboldi, in charge of Cruz Azul, has one. He won it with Santos back in 2018. Herc, who do you have more confidence in as a manager, not based on the overall career, but on where they are in their trajectory today? Who do you go with for this season,
Wow.
Tena or Siboldi?
Tena. I have to go with Tena. And I'm not just taking into account the overall career, but you look at Siboldi and what has transpired since his outing at Club Santos Laguna. Do you remember the way he was outed, the way he was let go with Santos Laguna? He had that rumored, it's not even rumored, because Gerardo Alcoba, the Uruguayan center back, came out and said, I was the player involved in this incident. There was a rumor of a fight within the player and the coach. And then Leandro Cufre, who was his auxiliar, who was his assistant coach, who backed the player. He went to the ownership group and says, this is what happened. The player was in the right. Siboldi was in the wrong. Rumors of him fighting with players like Jonathan Orozco. You remember the benching of Jonathan Orozco at Santos, fighting with El Huevo Lozano, Brian Lozano. Then him going from all places, Santos Laguna to Veracruz. Some of the decision-making has been slightly off. Then the first opportunity you get and you see what's going on at Cruz Azul, you immediately go with Garces and side with them and say, I'm going to be the next coach at Cruz Azul. Some of the decision-making today, I'm not really on par with Siboldi. He may have had a talented team at Santos Laguna, but I think the jury is very much still out on Siboldi and his methods, his tactics, him as a manager. So I'd have to go with Tena, who's a proven, I guess, commodity in what is Liga MX, and he may be old school, but do you remember some of the biggest moments in Mexican soccer? He's been right there, whether as part of the coaching staff or a head coach himself in what was the Olympic gold in 2012.
Sure, that was 2012. That was 8 years ago. His last title was 20 years ago, Herc. Is Luis Fernando Tena at this point not a little bit of a fossil?
I mean, you could say he's a fossil, absolutely, because of the amount of time he's been in the league. But if you're comparing him to Siboldi, if you're
where are the titles?
He's
been working all that time. Where are the titles?
I think I have more trust in Tena. Well, listen, you don't always win. You take a look at the real proven winners in this league, and I'll give you 2, and that's about it. I could maybe add Turco in as a third, but I think the first 2 are fairly obvious. It's Miguel Herrera and it's Ricardo Ferretti. Other than that, you're really digging deep in that well, aren't you, Sebi?
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.